In this episode from February 2025, Dr. Jennifer Roback Morse joins Father Rob Jack on driving home the faith. In this episode, they uncover tactics like the Department of Education's role in schools and USAID promotion of population control. It's a strategic orchestration with serious implications for sovereignty and morality. Ignoring these efforts threatens family life and national independence. Join Dr. Morse as she connects the dots between international aid and the global fight for family and faith, equipping you with insights to defend what matters most.
With us now is the one and only, the undisputed champion, Dr. Jennifer Roback Morse. She heads the Ruth Institute, an interfaith nonprofit organization helping defend the family and repair the damage of the sexual revolution. She wrote a book, I guess, about 7-8 years ago entitled The Sexual State, How Elite Ideologies Are Destroying Lives, and we've been seeing the fruits of what she predicted and described to this very day. And what's been going on lately with the current government administration, they've decided to take a fine-tooth comb through government, and they find all the exploitation and the waste of government funds, especially in this non-governmental organization called USAID, which is actually aiding, but it's not aiding for the good of people. It's aiding the sexual revolution. Dr. Morse, thanks for being with us.
Well, thanks for having me, Father. The sexual state is alive and well, isn't it? I mean, it's right in today's headlines. That's for sure.
Well, it's got a lot of money, Toro. I'll tell you that. Our money, our taxpayer dollars. Yeah. So instead of helping the poor here, instead of helping people with housing here, we're busy sending money all over the world for DEI and transgender stuff. It ought to be infuriating to people.
Well, it's infuriating to me, and I think a lot of people have been upset about USAID. That was the one, I don't know, the Trump administration timeline is pretty fast. It's kind of a whirlwind, but it was one of the first ones that they said, we're just shutting this down. You guys don't even come to work. We're shutting everything down, you know. And most of the outrage has been focused on government waste, seemingly frivolous projects, and also the fact that some of the money was going to finance media outlets that basically have turned into the propaganda arms of the Biden administration, you know, and so a lot of people are upset about that. But you know me, I looked at that list and something different jumped off the page at me, and that was the fact that how many of these projects are going overseas and financing the sexual revolution, financing transgender stuff, contraception, abortion, you name it. And I know for a fact that these countries don't want that. Now, this kind of stuff has been going on since Henry Kissinger, okay? He was the first one who started having a population policy, you see. And so this is a very deep problem, a very long-standing problem. And I felt like, you know, criminy, while people are looking at USAID, it's time to shine the light on this aspect of it also, because I know for a fact some of these countries would not be changing their laws and their practices if it weren't for the big leverage that USAID dollars and other international NGOs are using to leverage them.
Well, and the key to me is that, you know, everyone is all upset about Elon Musk. All he is doing, I mean, he's basically the messenger. They're opening up the books and they're looking at, I mean, it's bad enough they cheat, but they're even so stupid that they put their cheating in the books. And it said, you know, they don't label it for something that actually seems worthwhile. They'll actually label it for a transgender, you know, it's like this time of year when you get your taxes done and you want deductions, you know, and right. You start throwing how about a deduction for that? Or how about a deduction, you know, my gas bill was this much, can I deduct my gas? Well, no. Well, why not? It's a business expense. I mean, I use my car. Yeah, but you can only deduct so much per mile, you see. And you better prove those miles. Yeah, I don't think I had 3 million miles. Well, but, you know, can you give me the proof? And so They're giving us the proof here. And I'll tell you, the next one after this, the next big one, I think, which will hopefully put a nail in the coffin of the education office, is when they look at the Department of Education. Because you ain't seen nothing until you see the sexual revolution in the Department of Education.
Oh, and you know what? You can already see it the very first day Trump issued the executive order on transgenderism.
Yeah.
Where he said it's the policy of the United States to recognize male and female only.
Yeah.
And they gave definition of male and female. If you looked on that very first document, Father, he listed all the things that were going to have to be walked back and all the things that have to be undone, including but not limited to, and then he gave a list, right? Well, most of those things were in the things that the Department of Education had done. So
well,
that's
and don't
already
forget
your
these
first
congressmen
clue.
last week who showed up at the Department of Education, wanted to get in the building, and they weren't allowed in. And there's this congresswoman who's always she just likes to hear herself yell what's going on and on about it. Why would they go to the Department of Education? Because they know that's where the bodies are buried.
Well, and also the Department of Education and the policies that have come out of Washington have been very hard for ordinary people in their localities to stop, to overcome, right? Because there's a lot of money attached to them. In some cases, it's not just that they're going to give us money if we do this, it's they're threatening to take away the money unless we toe the line. And that's how Obama's transgender thing first happened in 2016. It was done. It was not a law from Congress. It was a dear colleague letter. Dear colleagues, you better do this or I'm going to smack you down. Roughly, right? And so, and that's why our young people are so confused. That's why we have the contagion, the social contagion of so many kids thinking they were born in the wrong body, thinking they're furries, thinking they need to change their sex. All these things are being driven in large part by what's going on in the schools. And I know people don't think, oh, this isn't happening in my school. You better be darn sure it's not happening in your school because we have it here in little old Lake Charles, Louisiana. I hear parents telling me about it, So, and these are not people who would have been thinking about this all on their own steam. You know what I mean? It's coming from the top down. And if you remember, Father, that was really the theme of my book, The Sexual Revolution, The Sexual State. The theme of the book was, this is not a cultural movement. This is not some impersonal forces of history just kind of blowing into society like a hurricane or something. No, this is being orchestrated from the top down. You can clearly see it in education, and you see it in USAID and their funding. And
that's the thing.
Amazing.
The activists, convinced the Congress to produce a slush fund. I mean, there's a history. Remember the problem back with the what was it? The House of Representatives, the mail, the post office. Big corruption about that, and then later on it was them horsing around with the pages. And that, I mean, the Congress has never been the most ethical of all groups. And it doesn't matter what party. I don't care about the party. It's just the fact when you give people power over others, it seems to be very difficult for them to keep in mind who put them there and who they're supposed to care for. That's why,
right.
How could someone come in there and in Congress and then leave 30 years later as a multimillionaire? Harry Truman said it well. If you leave Washington richer than when you came, you're a crook.
Yeah, and there are too many of those cases. Yeah, those memes are circulating around the internet, showing before and after net worth of various people.
But you think about these countries like, in South America here, because, again, this is interesting. This is one of the problems within our, the Southern Hemisphere. 2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala. Guatemala is not that big of a country. I don't think in Guatemala, which, of course, has its own political things, but it's also very strongly religious, has, a big interest in LGBT activism.
Well, and that's the thing. A lot of these countries that they're promoting this stuff to are traditionally Christian countries, whether they're Serbia. They're promoting stuff in Serbia, for crying out loud. I'm not thinking Serbia as a big hotbed of LGBT activism. I don't know. It's just me, But the activists have had their sights on the Catholic countries for a long time, Father. It's almost as if they can't stand the idea of people getting married, staying married, and taking care of their kids for a lifetime. It's like every holdout against the ideology is a kind of rebuke to them. Every chaste teenager is a rebuke to them. They can't stand it. So so anyway, a number of people now, because of all the attention on USAID, There are a number of people digging in with the microscope and the fine-tooth comb and everything, and they're putting out their reports, and they're talking about all sorts of nefarious things. And I just stumbled over them in the past few days. Oh my gosh, here's a person writing for the Federalist. Here's a person writing for the Population Research Institute. And these things are popping out, that if you scratch the surface, a lot of it is going to finance the sexual revolution.
And the thing is, sexual revolution aside, if these monies that, again, our taxpayer money that we give for our country, for our infrastructure, and then we wonder why the roads are bad and the schools are bad, all this, is that they've basically decided to take these funds and then use them to outside of our country for very nefarious reasons. It's kind of like, if we can't have it here, then you can't have it over there. If I can't have it, nobody can have it,
Well, I wouldn't want to look too closely at the motives of some of these people, because there's probably layers and layers of motives. But the fact is, there's been a lot of money floating around without accountability. And whenever you've got that situation, you're going to have problems. And you and I know, Father, that there are plenty of people who would like nothing better than to tear down every last vestige of Christian sexual morality. And, if you've got spare money laying around, they're going to lay claim to it and start spending it, And I just think people should be aware that this is what's going on.
Can you stay with us over the break, Dr. Morse, so we can continue here?
We're just getting started, and I'll be here.
If you're in the market to buy or sell your home or office, but want to use a realtor who supports your pro-life values, you can rest easy when you select a realtor from Real Estate for Life. They are a worldwide network of pro-life real estate agents who will help you buy or sell your property. And the best part is, they'll donate a portion of the sale to a charity, like the Ruth Institute, at no extra cost to you. Find your local pro-life realtor at realestateforlife.org. And remember, select the Ruth Institute as your charity of choice.
Dr. Jennifer Roback Morse from the Ruth Institute is with us today to talk about the discoveries in our country about this group called USAID, this non-government organization which has been financing a lot of things and perpetuating a couple old 19th century terms of imperialism and colonialism. And we always thought the United States was supposed to stay out of that stuff, stay out of Europe. We just want to mind our own business here. But we see that the government gives money to countries, especially in Africa and other places, under the guise of helping them with their infrastructure or helping them improve the country, when usually the money comes with a lot of strings, usually the strings regarding the sexual revolution. Dr. Morse was talking earlier, and she said, when I spoke at a youth event in Uganda, I apologized for my country's attempt to foist our values on them, and they burst into applause.
Yep, I've had that happen more than once. It happened in Uganda. It's happened at other speeches here in the U.S. where I've had an international audience, and I've said that, people are relieved to know that not everybody in America agrees with USAID and the Population Fund and all these other organizations that are promoting population control on them, basically, And I have started using the term, and I suggest other people use this term too. I call it ideological imperialism. Okay, it is imperialism. We are trying to control other people's societies using the leverage of money, basically. And it's not respectful towards their human dignity. It's not respectful towards their self-determination as a people. Yeah, their sovereignty. We would be, the idea that Russia was interfering with our elections made everybody furious, right? Well, we've been interfering with all kinds of things overseas, but with money, and it does. You mentioned Guatemala is not that big of a place. $2 million in Guatemala goes a long way, right?
Well, we just had a case yesterday. We were talking with someone from Aid to the Church in Need, how China has gone into the Democratic Republic of Congo. And they've basically imprisoned the Congolese people with money, and they're pulling out all the raw materials, the gold, all the electric materials they need there. And China is having a field day, just robbing things blind.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I've heard that kind of thing too. But the point is that we have been doing it in our own way towards different ends, perhaps, but we're trying to, control their population. We're trying to control their fertility. We're trying to tell them they need to allow abortion. A couple of years ago, in 2020, as a matter of fact, I interviewed the former president of the Catholic Medical Association in Kenya, and he was explaining to us some of the ways that the NGOs tried to manipulate the country into allowing abortion, for example. The Kenyan Constitution has the right to life built into the Constitution, that the preborn person has all the rights of a person, of everybody else. And so the NGOs come along and they try to, manipulate language to change slightly, just ever so slightly, the definition of the person, or ever so slightly the terms under which somebody could end a pregnancy, and these kind of things, and he was just quoting us chapter and verse on this stuff. And do you know what? YouTube took that video down.
Yeah.
And people can't see it on YouTube, but you can find it on our Rumble. I linked it in my piece at the Register. The National Catholic Register published a 1,200-word article today. I was surprised. They don't usually take things that are that long, but they thought the information was important for people. So if you wanted to see that video with the president of the Kenyan Catholic Medical Association, that's where you can easily find it.
Well, I guess the question we have to ask now, Doctor, is this: okay, all this has been exposed. Okay, that toothpaste has left the toothpaste, container. How can we stop that in the future? That really is the question. Do laws need to be passed? Do we need to lobby our congressmen and our senators? How do we deal with this just corruption and waste?
Well, I'll tell you, the problem with our government is that it's so expansive that it's hard to keep track of. And you and I can't be everywhere doing everything. And so what I would say to everyone listening is whatever your field of endeavor is, you need to be alert to this type of stuff going on. I don't care if you think you are a boring old accountant or insurance man, okay? There are weird things going on in insurance regulation.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the trans stuff is going on through insurance. What are they called? Commissions, the
right.
statewide insurance commission. So, and there are problems in the schools, right? So we all need to be alert to whatever is going on in our own zone. And I would say to everybody, pick out one thing that you, A, know something about, B, you're passionate about, and hang on to that thing. Grab onto it like an old dog with a bone, and don't let go of it until you get satisfaction on whatever the issue is, large or small. Maybe it's books in the library, or maybe it's USAID. We all
well, and the thing is if we get rid of some of these big government departments and it goes back to the states, it's going to be a lot easier for us to see and possibly, police. Yeah,
well, that's true. But we learned from Dobbs, didn't we?
Oh, yeah.
That sending things back to the state has its own set of problems.
It does.
It'll be easier to police, but we'll have 50 problems and not just one giant problem. But that's okay. That's okay. You got a lot of listeners, and a lot of your listeners have skills that they can use and that they can bring to bear in whatever their profession or line of work is, and we need everybody to do that.
Divide and conquer. We've been talking today with Dr. Jennifer Roback Morse from the Ruth Institute. Doctor, if people want to see the Dr. J Show and get the press releases you give and to check out your website, where can they go?
Just come on over to ruthinstitute.org. That's the basic place where everything is lodged. And then you can go to our YouTube channel, and you can also go to our parent resource page where we have a lot of resources for families that are dealing with the trans problem within their own homes. You'll find therapists and attorneys and all sorts of resources to help people navigate that problem.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. I hope you have a wonderful week.
Thanks so much, Father.
May Almighty God bless you in the name of the Father.
Thank you for listening and supporting the Ruth Institute. Please check out our YouTube channel, Ruth Out and About, where you'll find all interviews with the Ruth Institute.